Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're diving into a television moment that basically set the internet on fire. If you've been scrolling online recently, there's a good chance you've seen a clip of comedian Dave Hughes appearing on The Today Show. What was supposed to be a standard, breezy morning television spot rapidly derailed into this highly passionate, completely off-script critique of government spending, the housing market, and economic policy. Today, we're breaking down exactly what Hughes claimed, piece by piece, to really understand why it resonated so strongly with the public. All right, let's dive right in.
They treat our money like they found it in a sack by the river. I mean, wow. Hughes didn't just say the government is mismanaging funds, he painted this wild, vivid picture of absolute, reckless abandon. He essentially framed politicians as people who stumbled upon taxpayer money completely by accident, and now they're just desperately rushing to spend it before anyone finds out. It's a highly emotional, deeply populist framing of government spending, and it immediately hooked the viewers watching at home.
Section 1. The viral moment. A comedian goes off script.
To really grasp the scattershot nature of his opening complaint, you have to remember the context here. Morning shows are usually tightly scheduled, lighthearted affairs, right? But Hughes, entirely unprompted, bypassed all the usual banter to deliver a chaotic, intensely viral political critique. He actually described himself as feeling energized and distracted, and then immediately took aim at both the Prime Minister and the Treasurer. And he didn't just stick to high-level economics. First, he claimed the government blatantly lied to Australia about the budget. But then, he immediately grounded that huge macroeconomic frustration and highly personal, everyday observations. He pointed out that politicians, who he flat-out labeled idiots, by the way, are flying around in business class while everyday people suffer. He even brought it right into the studio. He pointed to his own face and noted he wasn't wearing any makeup because Channel 9 in Melbourne had cut their makeup artists because, well, times are tough. So the absolute genius of the rant is how he connected a very relatable corporate budget cut to the broader, heavier pain of national economic mismanagement.
Okay, moving to Section 2. Federal grievances, taxes, and the trillion-dollar debt.
$1 trillion. Let that sink in for a second. Hughes slammed the federal government for shouldering this incomprehensible level of debt. He used this staggering number to contrast the behavior of the politicians he walks past on airplanes. His argument here is pretty straightforward, but it bites. Politicians are carelessly spending public money and flying in luxury, utterly apathetic to the fact that the country's shouldering $1 trillion in debt simply because, hey, it isn't their own personal money. Building on that financial anxiety, he started laying out specific policy changes. Hughes targeted the Albanese government over changes to the capital gains tax and claimed that the tax take on superannuation investments had effectively been doubled. But the absolute core of his anger here, and what he claims is really damaging the economy, is the argument of a mandate. Hughes forcefully argued that the government completely lacked an election mandate for these tax changes. He basically said, look, if I had known these policies were coming, I wouldn't have voted for them. He asserted that this blatant lie affects every single working Australian who is relying on their superannuation for the future.
Section 3. State-level frustrations. Victoria's big build crisis.
So host Carl Stefanovic nudges him toward local issues, and Hughes presents this stark contrast in the state's labor market. He claimed that workers on government big build projects are earning up to 3 times the pay they'd get in the private sector, and the ripple effect of this, according to Hughes, is that private sector builders are completely starved of labor. They literally can't find workers because the state is siphoning the entire workforce away with these wildly inflated taxpayer-funded wages. Now, he made sure to note he doesn't blame the workers for taking the money. I mean, who wouldn't, right? But he fiercely criticized the structural mismanagement making it possible.
And to back up this claim of state mismanagement, he rolled out some very specific examples. He pointed out that the Westgate Tunnel project was meant to cost $5 billion, but the cost has ballooned to $10 billion. He even joked that for a $10 toll, you basically get the whole tunnel to yourself. He called it a lonely place where you could host a romantic dinner or a 60th birthday party. But the joke took a super serious turn when he explicitly claimed that local police stations are actually being shut down because the state has to divert all its funds just to pay for these bloated, unnecessary infrastructure projects.
Section 4. The climax. The housing market controversy.
15%. Hughes boldly claimed that government policy and lies have completely tanked the housing market. According to his perspective during the broadcast, these political decisions have directly cost every single Australian who owns a home approximately 15% of their property's value. Now, whether you agree with the economics or not, framing the issue as a direct 15% loss to a viewer's personal wealth, that is an incredibly potent way to capture the audience's attention for sure.
And he didn't stop there. Immediately following that, he dropped another striking figure, 50,000. Referencing a radio interview he'd heard with the Prime Minister, Hughes asserted that there are over 50,000 non-citizens currently participating in the first home buyer scheme. He explained that these are individuals who, according to his interpretation of the policy anyway, are allowed to keep their home country citizenship while simultaneously utilizing Australian grants.
Given them our money to buy houses in Australia. He forcefully argued that Australian taxpayer money is literally being handed out to non-citizens, effectively funding them to bid directly against everyday Australians at auctions. He framed this as the government actively ruining the ambitions of hardworking citizens, stating it as quote-unquote insane to give public money to people who may ultimately just return to their home countries.
Section 5. The populist reaction, raging against the machine.
So, when you make claims this loud and this direct on national television, the public responds. Let's look at how his status as a celebrity intersected with some very real-world populist anger. Hughes provided incredible anecdotal evidence of the support he's been getting. He claimed people are coming up to him on streets all over the country. He even described commercial pilots literally stepping out of their cockpits after flights just to tell him to keep going because they're absolutely sick of the government stealing our money. But, and this is great, in a moment of brilliant self-deprecation, he contrasted this massive populist street support with his own home life. He noted that his teenage daughter simply dismisses his rants by telling him he's just an old white guy and asking, "Who cares what you think?"
Too Old Stefanovic captured the vibe of the entire interview perfectly with this one quote, "Two old guys raging at the machine." Because the crazy thing is, the Today's Show hosts didn't cut him off. In fact, they actively encouraged him to keep raging, brother. This really encapsulates the raw, almost chaotic energy of the broadcast. Hughes was fully self-aware of his image in that moment, uncut, unmakeuped, and entirely unfiltered, channeling a very specific, widespread economic frustration directly into the camera lens.
Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. When a comedian and celebrity suddenly drops the jokes to channel raw populist anger about taxes, housing, and debt, where exactly does the morning show performance end and real political impact begin? Does an unscripted rant like this reflect the true mood of the country better than a polished, rehearsed political speech? It's absolutely something to seriously think about the next time a viral clip crosses your feed. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.